Okay, so today in the aftermath of Gukesh winning the candidates, and he's going to go on to face Ding, so congrats to him. But we have to fixate and focus on a take that I had from last year and in the past in general, which is, again, I've always been a fan of Hikaru. I've praised his career. I've even said and held it to a standard that this is the type of person who's a model of meritocracy when it comes to streaming, let's say, just as an example, that it should be based on being really good at something. So he's one of the best players in the world, so that justifies his popularity, and then everything else comes secondary, whether it be, oh, he has a good personality, he's funny, cult of personality, things like that I criticize, and others like that being the basis. So, for example, Alex Botez, Anna Kramling, not that it has to just do with chess. Like, I praise Shroud for the same thing. Like, you got to be an esports player. Let that be the basis that you're one of the best people in the world at something that you do, and then everything else comes secondary. Whereas with Anna Kramling and Botez and stuff like that, it's the opposite, where you're actually your personality or whatever else you want to point to is the primary reason, and then the fact that you're 2000 FIDE, which is not one of the best players in the world at the very least, that becomes secondary. Like, oh, it's not that important. It's not really about that. You're sort of cheating the process. So with chess in particular, meritocracy is the whole point. It's one of the truest in the world that you can find. So the problem with Hikaru here that I'll point to, again, I praise him, I've used him as the model of that example, that if there's anybody who represents that, somebody like Shroud, somebody like Hikaru, who's consistently good at what they do and justify their popularity and success in like a streaming space by actually being good at something rather than being, again, just funny or this or that can come second. I've used him as that example. So just to qualify it, I know people are really fanboys and overly defensive of people like this. But here is a fair but high level criticism to Levy at this point. He did very well in the tournament and people use that, but that actually hurts the point or makes the point for me. The fact that, yes, he's one of the best players in the world. He has been for a long time. He was before he started streaming, right? So nobody's questioning that he's still really good or that he's fallen off or that he's bad or that streaming means that he's a non-factor. But what it means is he's doing these recaps for the games. He's still focused on, streaming and content and YouTube and all these kind of things. So if he should have taken a 6-month break, let's say, before the candidates, both last time when he lost to Ding, right, where it's a similar situation. He loses to Ding, then Ding goes on to win the whole thing. So, like, he could have beaten Ding there theoretically. And I know it's easier said than done. You might say, oh, that wouldn't have made a difference. But do you think Ding was streaming then? Do you think Gukesh was streaming now? So again, before this, it doesn't mean he should quit streaming. It doesn't mean he should have never streamed. It means that 6 months before this candidate, he should have just stopped streaming, stopped focusing on that, study the way he used to, focus the way these other players do, because they're not splitting their attention, right? Gukesh is just fully focused on chess and studying at the highest level, and so is Nepo, and so is Fabi. So the fact that Hikaru does so well despite splitting his attention is impressive, but it's also disappointing because it's that high-level standard. For the one time in your life, if you're Hikaru, you had the chance to win a championship because Magnus isn't playing. That was last time, and he didn't take it fully seriously. He loses to Ding, and then here, he doesn't take it fully seriously. Now they'll say, oh, well, these are other good players, this and that. But this kind of shows me his commitment was not 100% there. So even as high level of criticism as it is, I think that's fair to say. Like, it's absolutely a shame. It's an insult to chess. It's a disgrace to something he committed his whole life to, because you're splitting your attention in this one moment where you could have won this candidates. He was right there. He could have done it even still, right? But you're still splitting your attention. Oh, you got to do the recap after. Oh, you're worried about your stream. Like, these other players are not splitting their attention like that. So if you were 100% invested, again, you might say, oh, of course he's still studying. Of course he's doing this and that. But when Hikaru was younger, when he was becoming the person that he is today, like the great player that he became, do you think he was focused on other things like that then? Oh, he was streaming back then? No, he wasn't. You know what I mean? So whatever got him there is not what he's doing now. And you couldn't set aside your stream for 6 months. You couldn't set aside the recaps and the YouTube for this one tournament just to try to fully focus the way the other players are. Again, it doesn't mean he's not studying. Doesn't mean he's not focused. Obviously, he's still very good. But that little extra could have certainly made the difference. And you're not going to convince anybody otherwise. So you missed the one chance you had to win a title. Last year, again, you weren't fully committed. This year, you weren't fully committed. And again, you would have had at least a legitimate chance, a better chance than you would have ever had in the context of going against Ding rather than Magnus. So that is a shame. Again, put it in context, but it is a disappointment because we know how good he is. We know how good he can be. We know that he wasn't fully committed. We know he's splitting his attention between streaming and YouTube and the tournament. So it's just kind of sad because people pat him on the back, but you realize what that maximum, again, even I wouldn't know anything about it. People ad hominem me, attack me, whatever. But that's not the point. In any field, whatever it is that you do, right? he knows what it's like to max out his effort. And I know that wouldn't involve streaming and focusing on that so much. I know it wouldn't involve doing the YouTube recaps, whatever, focusing on channel. I know that wouldn't be part of it, right? When Magnus is competing for world championships, you think he's worried about stuff like that? Like, you're fully, you eat chess, breathe chess, sleep chess, everything. Like, that's what these other players are doing. That's what Gukesh is doing. You had a, what, 40, 50 rating lead on him? Like, he's 27, 40 something. You're like 27, 80 something, I'm pretty sure. So he wasn't the highest rated player at the tournament. So Fabiano disappointed some people. Nepo actually played pretty well. I mean, he didn't lose a single game. So it's almost unfair to that. But it is a big disappointment for Hikaru that way. And again, people will defend it, but I'm holding it to the absolute high standard that it deserves. And the other one little funny moment is just the Fabian game where I would almost rather resign that game as one or the other just to give the other guy a chance, or just like flip a coin to do it, because I think it's dumb. Both players miss out. So we end up, because we draw, we end up both losing. So that's stupid. Like, I would have, yes, you could say they played, I mean, Fabio was winning most of the game, so it's a disappointment for him too. But yeah, Hikaru falls before the altar of meritocracy because he wants to stream. And again, not saying he shouldn't do it at all, even, but just for this one moment in your whole life, you can't appreciate that, like, from when he was a kid and he's playing chess, like, oh, I always dreamed of being the world champion, that kind of a vibe. You can't set it aside just this one time, just like with last year, just this one time to give yourself a chance when it's handed on a silver platter, where Ding is not in the best psychological state, where he kind of choked a lot even though he won the last time, where he's kind of the easiest target that you're going to get ever anyway in a world championship, where Magnus isn't playing. Everything is perfectly aligned for you, and you just can't give up streaming. You just can't stop.